Okay, cool. So what I want to do today is go over Alan Moore's run of the Saga of Swamp Thing. It starts with issue 20 in January 1984, so it's just as new to me as it is with some of you watching. So, as some of you know, the Swamp Thing show is actually going to be airing on the DC app on May 31st, and it's loosely going to be based off of this run. So let's check out the source material and see how the show stacks up, yeah? Issue 20 picks up at the aftermath of a plane crash in a forest by a mountain between Swamp Thing and his arch nemesis, Anton Arcane. You see, just as Swamp Thing is a man fused with nature, Arcane is a man fused with machinery, a natural antithesis for Swamp Thing. However, as he approaches the crashed ship, he cannot help but feel the need to find the body of Arcane to make sure that he's dead once and for all. If Swamp Thing cannot see Arcane's body himself, he cannot hold the dead body in his hands, then he cannot fully believe that Arcane is dead. That is the way it works in this world. Once he finds Arcane's body, he doesn't feel a sense of accomplishment. He does not feel a sense of relief. He instead is overtaken by thoughts of grief. Arcane was his archenemy, the man who symbolized everything that he is not. In a way, that helped Swamp Thing realize everything he was and everything he was meant to be. So now Arcane is dead, and his threat is gone from the world. What does Swamp Thing do now? Elsewhere, a general is currently debriefing another high-ranking official on his current attempts to capture a man once known as Alec Holland, the creature known as Swamp Thing. The general informs the official that there has been word of a confrontation that just ended in Virginia. Apparently, the confrontation concluded with a strange airship crashing to the side of a mountain. Naturally, the locals in the area heard the commotion and more than likely chalked the airship up as some sort of UFO. Government action would be more than welcome, and if any questions arise, they always have the useful declaration that all this is for the sake of national security. As the plan is set into motion, soldiers are loading guns, searchlights, and flamethrowers into military-grade trucks. They are loading up a full fleet of helicopters with rockets ready to engage. They have their mission and they have their orders. They are not only looking for Alec Holland, but 4 other particular people of interest, and these people are in for a very rude awakening. Such as Elizabeth Tremaine and Dennis Barclay. As Elizabeth wakes up sitting next to Dennis in a crashed vehicle, she slowly remembers the events of the night before. The van had broken down and it had been too late and too far to walk, so she and Dennis had no choice but to stay in a van overnight with each other as some sort of solace for their shared misfortune. As she looks over to Dennis as he sleeps, she hopes that he doesn't misinterpret what happened last night for more than it was. But when he finally does wake up, they make their way back to the hotel, and he spends the bulk of the time making plans for the future, like trips to his mother's beach house in Florida. They could use the extra sunlight to drown out the shadows from their lives, as he puts it. That is when Elizabeth rejects his advances, saying that what happened the night before will never happen again. Naturally, this hurts Dennis, and he quickens his pace to the hotel without saying a word. All they can hear are the footsteps on the street and the nature around them, and then a helicopter, and another one, and another one, and another one. Back at the hotel, Swamp Thing is at the last place he remembers seeing Dennis and Liz. There is no sign of the two, so Swamp Thing turns back into the forest with nowhere else to go. It's a new world. A world full of shopping malls and strip lights and software. The dark corners are being pushed back a little more each day. People like him and Arcane are creatures of the shadow, and they are running out of places to hide. Monsters weren't meant to live in the light. Elsewhere, we meet Matt and Abby. Abby was with Swamp Thing before Arcane's ship crashed. When Swamp Thing left her to go explore the crash, she had no other option but to go back to the house that she was staying at. That is where she found her old boyfriend, Matt. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending how you see it. Alec left Abby with a little bit of information to think about on her journey home. You see, Matt has a curse. His deepest fears have the tendency of becoming real. Monsters that glow, monsters with no eyes, monsters that look like damp furry rugs that giggle with children's voices, and some things that he doesn't even want to try to remember. Matt also has an issue with alcohol, a management issue. And when he becomes more and more intoxicated, the monsters have more and more of a chance to come to reality to plague and torture his friends. More importantly, Abby. But that's a thing in the past now. Matt has conquered his demons. He no longer has a problem with his drinking or these nightmares. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was the electroshock therapy. He cannot say for sure. But he does know this can give him and Abby a chance to be okay again. As Abby goes outside for some air, she leaves Matt alone with his thoughts. Of course, he hadn't told her the entire truth. The bit about wrestling with the visions, that was true enough, but he hadn't obliterated them. He just learned to control them. He had wanted Abby, but Abby doesn't want him. That's okay. That's just fine. He sips his drink and he shifts his weight in his chair, relaxing, as he watches a small version of Abby in lingerie dance around, just for him. And as he enjoys his time alone in the dark, he hears a rumbling, the sound of a fleet of helicopters. Matt stands to his feet and walks outside to make sure the real Abby is okay, and as he reaches her, one of the helicopters fires a rocket at the house, and it bursts into flames. Back at the hotel, Dennis and Liz arrive at the front office of the hotel and request the medical bag that was left in room 18. As the story goes, it doesn't belong to her, it belongs to a friend. The elderly woman at the counter would love to help, but not as much as she wants to tell these new friends of hers that she just met about the movie she was watching last night. But that reminds the woman, 2 people came by room 18 looking for them, but since Dennis and Liz were out at the time, the 2 people left without saying a word. That is when a polite gentleman offers to grab the bag from the hotel for the elderly woman so that she can finish her story. As he enters the key into the door of the hotel, it explodes and bursts into flames. Dennis quickly jumps up. He's getting war flashbacks and his instincts are taking over. He grabs Elizabeth and he smiles. And then they leave the premises as quickly as possible, just as the 2 people from before arrive to inspect the scene and confirm that they killed their targets. Near the forest, the soldiers are all now in position. When the count reaches 0, all the spotlights surrounding the forested area will turn on and illuminate the shadows. Then the next phase will begin. Infantrymen will move in from the north with flamethrowers and torch the trees to the ground, leaving nowhere for Swamp Thing to hide. And it's not long until they find him. As Swamp Thing ventures farther down south, he is reminded of a beetle being overtaken by a swarm of ants. Of course, the beetle was bigger and stronger and more clever, but there were just too many ants. A helicopter flashes a spotlight on top of him, blinding him even more than he was before. As the pilots cheer at their good fortune for spotting the monster, they decide to lower the chopper to get a closer look. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, of course. Unfortunately for them, the opportunity was too good to be true, and Swamp Thing reaches up and crashes the helicopter to the ground, killing the 2 pilots with an explosion. However, he has no time to celebrate or even think. The ants keep coming and coming. If he could just get past the belt of white light, he'll be able to get back to the shadows. The shadows is where he's at his best. The shadows are where he's at his safest. But he can't help but wonder if the shadows are even safe anymore. He reasons to himself that it doesn't matter. He cannot stay here. He needs to make a run for it. Run for the shadows. He is shot 11 times in less than a fraction of a second, certainly putting his claim to invulnerability to the test, and the soldiers approaching his collapsing body wonder, is he dead? Alright everybody, yeah, so that is the first issue of this whole run by Alan Moore. I don't know how many issues long this is, but I think I'm going to start combining a couple of issues in a volume, breaking them up kind of like I do the Doom Patrol videos, but I don't know. The show hasn't started yet. When the show starts, there's probably going to be some people that jump out more that people want to hear about, so I don't know if there's anybody you guys want to hear about. If there's anything I should be looking out for, comment below. Let me know if you like this. And yeah, hope everybody's having a great day.